Hello, my friends. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss a new horror story. I never thought I'd take a job like this. Cleaning up an old, long-abandoned high school, alone, at night, in the dead of winter, is not something most people would willingly do. But money was tight, bills were piling up, and when the temp agency called offering a simple overnight janitorial shift at Fairmont High, I said yes without asking questions. I wish I had asked questions. The building sat on the edge of town, cut off by a chain-link fence and surrounded by overgrown fields. Its windows were boarded up in patches, graffiti sprawled across its brick walls, and the front doors had rusted locks. The temp agency had given me a key. They claimed it had been decommissioned for years, but it worked. I arrived at 9 p.m. The winter sky was black, but a thin crescent moon gave just enough light to see the cracked asphalt leading to the entrance. The air was cold, biting at my face, carrying the scent of wet leaves and something I couldn't identify. I pushed the door open. The hinges groaned like a scream. My flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating dusty lockers and broken ceiling tiles. The place smelled of mold, old paper, and something fouled, rotting maybe. "All right," I muttered. "Just mop the hallways, sweep the cafeteria, empty the trash. Easy night." I flicked the light on and off a few times, trying to ignore the instinctive feeling crawling over my skin. The first hour was normal. I pushed the mop across the cracked tiles of the main hallway, dust motes floating in the beam of my flashlight. My footsteps echoed. My own voice sounded alien in the emptiness when I hummed quietly to keep my nerves calm. Then, at exactly 10:23 p.m., I heard it. Click, slam. A locker. A locker had slammed somewhere down the hallway. I froze. I swore to myself it was the wind. The building groaned all the time. I shook my head and continued cleaning. Then, another locker. Slam. Closer. I spun the flashlight toward the sound. Nothing. My stomach tightened. My heart thumped. Must be heating pipes, I muttered. Yeah, that's it. But the sounds kept coming. A sequence now, like someone was walking, opening lockers as they went, slamming each one shut. I wasn't sure if it was slow or fast. Time had begun to stretch. My flashlight beam darted up and down the hall. Still, nothing. By midnight, things had escalated. I was in the gym, empty trash cans stacked along the far wall. My mop squeaked as I pushed it, breaking the deafening silence. Then, laughter. A high-pitched, childish laugh, faint. It bounced around the gym like it was coming from every corner at once. I froze. "Hello?" I called. "Is someone here?" No answer, just the echo of that laughter, stretched and distorted. I gripped my flashlight tighter and edged toward the bleachers. They were old, splintered, the paint peeling. The air felt heavier here, colder, and I could see my breath puff in front of me. Another laugh, this one closer, from behind me. I spun around. Empty gym. No one at all. My heart was racing now. I told myself to leave, to go outside, but I had floors to clean, and my paycheck depended on finishing. It got worse around 1:15 a.m. I was on the second floor, sweeping a hallway lined with lockers. I had my radio with me, trying to call the temp agency for reassurance, but no signal. Dead, dead, dead. A locker slammed directly in front of me, then another, on the other side. Then, one by one, all the lockers in the hallway slammed in sequence, like someone, or something, was walking slowly past, closing them with precision. I could feel it, watching, waiting. I swung my flashlight around. The beam shook. Shadows leapt across the ceiling. Then a whisper, right next to my ear. "Go. Back." I jumped so hard I dropped the mop. The handle clattered against the tile. My flashlight flicked and landed beam down, illuminating the long hallway in one weak circle. Nothing. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. Something had frozen me. My chest tightened. My breaths came short, sharp. Another laugh, this time from the ceiling, above me. I looked up. A vent cover rattled, moved slightly. Just a fraction, but it was enough to make my stomach drop. Then the lights, they flickered, just overhead bulbs, one after another, until only a few weak orange lights remained, buzzing softly. And I saw them. Figures. Small, pale, tiny figures standing at the far end of the hall. Kids. But not real kids. Their limbs were too long, faces blurred, eyes black holes, their mouths twisted into grotesque smiles. They were staring at me, and they began to move. Slowly at first, then faster. They didn't walk. They slid, twisted, and leaned as if gravity didn't apply to them. I screamed. They didn't make a sound. The laughter had stopped. Now it was just silence, except for the lockers, slamming one after another, closer and closer. I backed up until my shoulder hit the wall. My flashlight rolled across the floor, casting their shadows over the lockers. One figure raised its hand, too high, bending the hallway ceiling, and pointed directly at me. Come. Back. I don't know why I did it. I don't know if it was fear or instinct or madness, but I ran. I ran faster than I ever thought I could. The lockers were slamming behind me in a thunderous rhythm. Each step I took, the echoes seemed to grow louder, the shadows stretching taller. I reached the stairwell, pulled open the heavy door. It was locked. I was trapped. I spent what felt like hours trying every key, every lock. All of them refused to open. Then I heard something behind me. Footsteps. Not like a normal person's. They didn't tap the floor. They thudded, dragged, slid, and they were fast. I turned the corner. Nothing. A locker slammed 3 feet from my head. I screamed and slammed into the wall. Another laugh, fainter, mocking, and then footsteps above me. The second floor, directly above me. They were running, but they weren't human. I grabbed my radio, screaming into it. Help! Someone! Get me out of here! Static. The laughter returned. Multiple voices now, overlapping. Children, distorted, high-pitched and low-pitched at the same time. I stumbled into the main office, dusty files scattered across the floor, desks overturned. My flashlight illuminated fingerprints, small, long-fingered, smeared across the surfaces as if tiny hands had just touched them. And there, in the corner, the janitor closet door creaked open slowly. I hadn't touched it. I backed up, shining the flashlight. The door swung wider. I saw a figure step out, a child. But again, wrong. Its limbs were too long, its movements twitching, unnatural. Its face blurred as if someone had smeared it with paint. And it smiled. Then all the other doors, lockers, classrooms, every storage space, creaked, rattled, and swung open at once. They were everywhere, watching me. I ran. I don't know how I got to the front doors. I didn't look back. I don't even remember turning the key. I just ran out into the freezing night. The laughter followed me outside, echoing into the empty parking lot. Even after I slammed the car door and locked it, I could still hear faint whispers. Come back. I didn't go back inside. I quit the next day. I never returned to Fairmont High. The temp agency called. They said, "We'll find someone else." I didn't respond. But sometimes, at night, I hear laughter. Soft, high-pitched, like 1,000 tiny children giggling just out of sight. And sometimes when I pass an abandoned school, or even a school that's still operating, I swear I see shadows moving in the halls, small figures, staring, waiting. And every so often, I hear it, faintly, like it's coming from the air itself. Come back. I don't go near schools anymore. I don't take night shifts. I don't answer calls for temp jobs. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is silent, I can hear the lockers slamming. And the laughter never stops. People always joke about night shift security guards, how we sit in a chair, drink bad coffee, and fight sleep until sunrise. They think the worst we deal with is boredom. They don't understand the silence. They don't understand the darkness. And they definitely don't understand what happens when you're the only human being inside a building the size of a city block. And something else is there with you. I'm telling this because I haven't worked a night shift since. I won't go near that building. I won't even drive past that part of town anymore. I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I know something followed me home. It started 3 years ago when I accepted a temporary night guard position at Old Fairview Research Complex, about 30 miles outside Duluth, Minnesota. They were renovating the place after a decade of being abandoned. One security guard per shift. No coworkers, just cameras, radios, and empty hallways. I wasn't told much about the building's history. Apparently, it had been used for various government contract scientific work. That should have been my first warning, but I needed the money. The building was enormous, 6 floors above ground, 2 underground, countless labs, storage rooms, mechanical tunnels, and offices, most of it unlit. Imagine standing alone in a pitch-black hallway the length of a football field, your flashlight barely reaching the halfway point, and knowing there are 50 more hallways just like it. I worked the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift. The first few nights were normal, quiet, easy, almost relaxing. I made rounds every 40 minutes, checked cameras from the main security office, and logged activity. Nothing unusual. But on my 4th night, something changed. It was 1:17 a.m. when I first heard it. A metallic bang echoed through the building, distant, but loud enough to vibrate the air. I jumped out of my chair. I checked the monitors. Nothing. Another bang, this time louder, like someone slamming a heavy metal door. The sound came from the 4th floor, the old mechanical wing. I didn't want to go. Every instinct told me to stay put, but protocol is protocol. I grabbed my flashlight, radio, and keyring and headed for the elevator. The ride up felt too long and too quiet. When the doors opened, the hallway lights flickered. They weren't supposed to flicker. The power system had been fully replaced. I stepped out slowly. The floor was freezing, far colder than the others. My breath fogged in the air. Then I heard it, a shuffle, like something dragging across the ground. My body went cold. "Security," I called out. "If someone's up here, identify yourself." Silence. I moved forward 1 step at a time until I reached the mechanical wing door. It was a huge steel door, thick and heavy. I had to unlock it manually. But the moment I touched the handle, a violent chill shot through my arm. Not a cold chill, but a sharp one, like static electricity mixed with ice. I unlocked the door and pushed. It screamed open with a groan so loud it echoed back down the hallway. My flashlight beam cut into the darkness of the mechanical wing. The smell hit me instantly, like rust, old water, and something rotten. I walked inside. Pipes lined the walls above me. Old machines sat against the far wall, covered in plastic sheets that fluttered faintly as if something had breathed on them. Then, something flickered at the edge of my light. I aimed the beam. Nothing. But I could have sworn something had moved. I walked deeper inside, steps echoing too loudly. The farther in I went, the colder it became. My fingers went numb around my flashlight. Then, I found the cause of the noise. One of the heavy steel access doors at the end of the wing was swinging open and closed, slamming into the frame each time the building shifted. Bang, bang, bang. I sighed in relief. Wind pressure, nothing more. I walked over and grabbed the door to secure it. Then, something whispered behind me. Not wind, not machinery. A voice, a human voice. "Hey." I spun around. Light cut across empty space. "Hey." Turn around. The voice was right behind me. I staggered backward, heart exploding in my chest. Flashlight shaking, I pointed it toward the far wall. Nothing. Then, the metal door behind me slammed shut with a deafening clang. I screamed. I'm not ashamed. Anyone would have. I grabbed the door handle and pulled. It didn't budge. I pulled harder, locked, from the outside. Panic surged through me. "Control, this is Mike in Sector 4. I need a supervisor to open the mechanical wing door. Now." Static. I tried again. "Control, respond." Nothing. The radio wasn't dead. The red light blinked. Someone was blocking the signal. Behind me, the shadows shifted. Not a trick of the light. They moved. Something long and thin peeled away from the darkness, like a person separating from a wall. My light caught the outline, tall, extremely tall, and narrow. Its head brushed the pipes. Its arms hung almost to the floor. I froze. My brain refused to process it. Then it stepped forward. I stumbled back, hitting the sealed metal door behind me. Its footsteps were wrong, soft but sticky, like bare feet pulling off a wet floor. It didn't walk normally. Its limbs bent the wrong way. When the light finally hit its face, my stomach turned. It didn't have one. Just stretched, pale skin where facial features should have been. No eyes, no mouth, no nose. Yet I heard it speak, inside my head like a thought that wasn't mine. Turn around. I dropped my flashlight. The bulb shattered, plunging me into darkness. I screamed again and threw myself against the door. Help! Anyone! Open the door! The footsteps stopped behind me. Then, slowly, deliberately, a hand touched the back of my neck. Long fingers, cold, soft, wrong. I collapsed, shaking violently. My vision blurred, breath coming in panicked gasps. Then, from down the hallway, a voice echoed, "Mike!" The door unlocked instantly and swung open. 2 men from the renovation crew stood in the hallway, staring at me like I was insane. I crawled out, sobbing. They asked if I was okay. I couldn't speak. They checked the mechanical wing. Nothing was there. No figure, no footsteps, no handprint. Just the shattered flashlight and the swinging access door. They escorted me back to the main office. I stayed silent the rest of my shift. I should have quit. Any sane person would have. But the company blamed everything on stress hallucinations and sleep deprivation, and I stupidly convinced myself it must be true. The next shift, something else happened. This time it started earlier, around 11:30 p.m. I was watching the monitors when one camera, camera 12, located on the second basement floor, flickered. That floor was strictly off limits during renovation. No power, no equipment, no personnel. The screen went snowy, then cleared. Something was standing in the hallway, tall, thin, unmoving, a silhouette. The same silhouette I saw the night before. I leaned closer to the monitor. Its head tilted, slowly, unnaturally, as if it sensed I was watching. Then it took a step toward the camera. The feed distorted. I heard a faint static whisper through the speakers. "Turn around." I shoved my chair back so hard it crashed into the wall. My heart was pounding so violently I felt dizzy. Then the entire row of monitors went black, except one. Camera 3, main lobby. Someone was standing at the security entrance. I zoomed in. It was a man, tall, wearing a long coat, but the camera resolution was too poor to see his face. He stood perfectly still, just outside the glass doors, not trying to get in, just staring. I watched for over a minute. He didn't move, didn't shift weight, didn't breathe. Finally, I grabbed the intercom. "Sir, the building is closed. You need to leave the premises." No response. I repeated myself, louder. Nothing. Then, very slowly, his head turned toward the camera. But it didn't stop turning. It kept rotating, and rotating, and rotating, until his chin was facing upward and the back of his head faced the ground. No human neck could do that. I gagged and stumbled back. The man's body suddenly twitched violently, a jerking, glitching movement, before he dashed out of frame so fast the camera barely caught it. I ran to the main entrance immediately. My shaking hands fumbled with the keys. I swung the door open and shone my flashlight into the cold night. Nothing. No footprints in the snow, no tire tracks, no sign anyone had been there. But the glass door had one new smudge, a handprint, long fingers, too long. I slammed the door shut and locked it. Around 3 a.m., the radio crackled. A whisper broke through. "Downstairs." I froze. The voice continued, faint and glitching. "Come. See?" I threw the radio across the room. It hit the floor, and slid under the desk, then hissed again with the same voice, right next to my feet. "Turn around!" I didn't pick it up. I couldn't. My entire body felt like it was pulsing with cold. Then the fire alarm erupted, shrill, deafening, and impossible to ignore. Red lights flashed through the hallways. Panels indicated the alarm originated from basement level 2, the restricted floor. I didn't want to go, but it's law. Fire alarms must be investigated. I forced myself toward the stairwell. The red emergency lights flickered, painting the walls in pulsing, blood-colored flashes. The deeper I went, the colder it became. When I reached basement level 2, the alarm abruptly cut off. Silence swallowed the hallway. A thick, heavy silence. Then I heard dripping. Water, maybe. I turned my flashlight toward the sound and froze. Something wet covered the floor, a long smear leading from the stairwell to the center of the hallway. Not water, not chemical fluid. Dark, thick, red, blood. I followed the trail with shaky steps. The metallic smell grew stronger until I felt nauseated. The smear ended at a large door labeled Bio Storage, 2B, authorized personnel only. I put my ear to the door. Silence. I pushed the door open. The room was pitch black. My flashlight beam cut through dust and cold air. Then it hit something in the center of the room, a figure sitting on the floor, back facing me, legs folded, perfectly still. I stepped back instinctively. The figure trembled, a tiny, unnatural shiver, as if a glitch in reality had run through it. Then it stood in one slow, jerking motion. My flashlight beam trembled violently in my shaking hand. The figure turned. It wasn't the faceless thing. It wasn't the long-limbed creature. It was a man. A janitor I'd spoken to earlier that week, Carl. His eyes were wide and unfocused. His jaw hung slack. Dry blood covered his shirt. He opened his mouth, but instead of sound, something slid out. A whisper, not from him, from behind him. "Turn around." Then his head snapped backward at a horrifying angle, 180 degrees, staring upside down at me. I ran. I ran so fast I tripped multiple times. I slammed into walls. My lungs felt like they were bleeding. Behind me, the footsteps followed, fast, jerking, wrong. At the stairwell, something grabbed my jacket. I screamed and ripped free, leaving half the fabric behind. I didn't stop running until I reached the main floor. I burst through the lobby doors and into the freezing night. I didn't go back inside, not even to grab my stuff. I stayed outside until my supervisor arrived at 6 a.m. When they searched the building, they found nothing. No blood, no Carl, no smudges, no footprints, nothing disturbed. They reviewed the camera footage, all blank, all corrupted by a power surge. They said I imagined it, that stress caused hallucinations, that none of it was real. Then they fired me. 3 days later, Carl's car was found in the parking lot of a gas station 30 miles away. Doors open, engine running. He was never found. The company sealed basement level 2 permanently. But that's not the worst part. Last winter, nearly a year after the incident, I found something in my basement while doing laundry. A handprint, long fingers, too long, on the back of my dryer. And on the wall, written in dust, "Turn around." I ran upstairs so fast I almost broke my neck. I don't go into the basement anymore. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is completely silent, I hear footsteps down there, slow, sticky, wrong. And sometimes when I'm in bed, I hear a whisper behind me. Not outside, not in the hallway, right behind my ear. Turn around. I never do. I've spent years trying to convince myself that what happened that night wasn't real, that it was hypothermia or exhaustion, or maybe just my mind snapping under the wrong kind of pressure. But every time winter comes, every time the snow starts falling in heavy, muffling sheets, I get this tight electric knot in my stomach, because snow doesn't silence the world unless something is listening. And on that night, something was. I was 26, working as a wildlife surveyor for a small environmental company in northern Minnesota. My job was simple: camp in designated monitoring areas, record animal activity, check trail cameras, and hike out after 3 or 4 days. Nothing glamorous, nothing dangerous, until that assignment. It was late December, just days after Christmas. A heavy winter storm had passed through, leaving the entire region buried beneath almost 2 feet of snow. The company wanted updated records to see how the local wildlife was responding before the next phase of land development. I volunteered, extra pay, and no family obligations. They gave me Site 42, a remote patch of forest near the Canadian border. I'd been there before. Quiet place, isolated, sure, but never threatening. I reached the drop-off point at 3 p.m. My driver, a guy named Miller, gave me a weird look as I unloaded. "You sure you want to stay out here alone this week?" he asked, glancing at the darkening sky. "I've done colder." He gave a short laugh. "Just remember, storms mess with sound. People hear things." "What kind of things?" I joked. His smile faded. "Things that aren't there." I waved him off, watching the truck disappear down the snow-packed road. Then I shouldered my pack and started walking. By the time I reached the campsite clearing, the sky had gone a pale, bruised purple. The trees around me stood still, the snow pinned to their limbs like frozen breath. I set up my tent, started a small fire, and heated a can of chili. Normal, comfortable, completely unaware of what was waiting in that forest. It started on the first night. I woke up at 2:13 a.m. I remember the exact time because I checked my watch twice. Something had scraped across the outside of my tent, soft, slow, almost gentle, like fingers dragging through the snow. I held my breath and listened. The wind was still. The forest was dead quiet. Then, scrurch, again, circling. I grabbed my flashlight and snapped it on, aiming it at the thin tent wall. The beam illuminated the fabric, but no silhouette appeared. No footprints, no shadows, nothing. "Probably a branch," I muttered to myself, except the nearest branch was 10 feet away. After 10 minutes of silence, I talked myself into lying back down. Sleep came in fragments. The next morning, I found the tracks. They weren't animal prints, they weren't boot prints. They were long, dragging marks in the snow, as if something had been pulled or had crawled around my tent in a perfect circle. No beginning, no end, just a ring. The air around me felt colder than it should have been. I checked the trail cameras, trying to distract myself. Most were normal: deer, a fox, maybe a wolf. But the fourth camera, the one closest to my tent, had a single corrupted file, just static in a faint shape I couldn't make out. The wind picked up that afternoon, carrying a strange, low hum through the trees. I'd heard wind howl before. This wasn't that. This was more vocal, almost like someone humming a lullaby. By sunset, the atmosphere felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. The forest felt heavier, watching. I kept the fire big that night, bigger than usual. Light makes you feel safe, even when it isn't. The second night was worse. I didn't fall asleep until nearly 1 a.m., and when I did, I plunged into some dreamless, heavy state until something grabbed my ankle. I jerked awake instantly, heart hammering, and yanked my leg back. No one was inside the tent. The zipper was still locked from the inside, but the imprint of a hand was on my boot. A hand shaped like a person's, but too long, too thin, too wrong. I scrambled outside with my flashlight. Snowflakes drifted softly around me. My breath fogged the air. Then I saw the tracks. Not prints, tracks. Like something had been dragging itself through the snow toward my tent. 2 long depressions, side by side, with intermittent holes where something pointy had punched down. Claws, elbows. The trail stopped 5 feet from my tent. Just stopped. As if whatever it was had lifted itself upright or vanished. The night around me felt colder again. Not the natural cold of winter, but the suffocating cold of something hovering close to your skin. Then I heard it. from the tree line. A voice, soft, broken, imitating something human. Cooled. My flashlight trembled in my hand. Who's there? No answer. Just a wet, rattling breath. Then, woods exploding with motion, something darted between the trunks. Fast, too fast. My light barely caught a glimpse. A pale shape, long limbs crawling on all fours but somehow upright at the same time. I stumbled backward, falling into the snow. The fire flickered violently, as if reacting to a sudden gust of freezing air. When I looked up, the forest was silent again, empty, watching. That was the moment I knew something was seriously, dangerously wrong. And I still had 2 nights left before pickup. The third day, the storm returned. Thick waves of snow choked the air. The sky hung low and heavy, almost black despite it being noon. I stayed in the tent, wrapped in layers, listening to the wind batter the nylon walls. But it wasn't just wind. Between gusts, I heard whispers, not imagined, clear, human-like but fragmented, repeating my name. At first, I thought it was the storm playing tricks, but then it spoke in a voice I recognized, a voice that made my blood turn to ice. It was Miller, the driver who had dropped me off. "Help! Help me! It's so cold!" Impossible. He was miles away. Then the voice changed, higher, female, crying. Please let me in. Please, it's freezing." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Because whatever was speaking wasn't outside my tent. It was whispering from the snow, from beneath me, under the frozen ground. The sobbing rose into a horrible, choked wail that vibrated through the air like something dying. I covered my ears, squeezed my eyes shut, and waited. Eventually, it stopped, but the silence was worse. That night, I didn't sleep. The temperature dropped below 0. My fire struggled against the wind. Every crack of snow-logged branches sounded like footsteps. By midnight, snow had piled a foot high around the tent, muffling everything. At 12:47 a.m., the humming returned. Low, rhythmic, coming from everywhere and nowhere. I sat up slowly, gripping my knife. Useless, I know, but fear makes stupid things feel logical. The humming grew louder, vibrating the air. The tent fabric trembled, then tap, 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 knuckles on the outside of the tent inches from my face, tap, tap. Then a dragging sound, slow and deliberate, sliding along the wall from one side to the other. I shined my flashlight toward the sound. A silhouette pressed against the fabric. Long head, longer arms, too thin, too tall. Then a voice, my voice, came from it. "Let me in." My stomach dropped. The silhouette leaned closer, distortions rippling across the tent wall as if its face was sliding under the fabric. I stumbled backward, knocking over my lantern. Darkness. The silhouette twitched. Then it sprawled upward, stretching impossibly tall, as if unfolding a spine that had too many joints. And then, the zipper began to move. Not quickly, slowly, deliberately, as if the thing outside wanted me to watch. I lunged forward, grabbing the zipper from inside and pulling it back down. The resistance on the other side was unreal, like wrestling with a steel cable. "Stop," I whispered, voice breaking. The thing whispered back using my own tone. "Stoop!" I threw my entire weight onto the zipper, forcing it shut. The silhouette froze. Then it slid backward, disappearing into the snow. Silence followed. For a minute, maybe 2. Then I heard the sound that permanently scarred me. It laughed, not a creature's laugh, not an animal's. A perfect copy of my laugh, but twisted, glitched, broken, like it was learning me. And then it walked away. Footsteps. This time, definite footsteps. Human footsteps. I didn't sleep at all. Morning came slowly, pale gray light creeping across a world buried deeper than before. My tent was half suffocated under a new blanket of snow. I forced myself outside. Every nerve screamed danger. Every instinct told me to run, but I needed to check the trail cameras. Camera 4, the corrupted one, was completely gone. The post had been ripped out, the camera snapped in half like cheap plastic. Camera 3 had a new file. I hesitated, then pressed play. The footage showed the forest, snow falling, nothing unusual at first. Then a figure stepped into frame, pale, naked, emaciated, limbs too long, joints bending backward. Its face was a smear of blurred flesh, as if unfinished. It turned toward the camera, and the distortion worsened like the lens couldn't focus on it. Then it opened its mouth, not wide, downward, splitting its jaw as if tearing through its own skin. And then my voice came out. "Help me, I'm so cold." The file ended. I vomited into the snow. The fourth night, my last night, was a living nightmare. By 9 p.m., the snowstorm grew violent. The sky was black, thunderless, but roaring with wind. My tent shook like a dying animal. The forest felt alive, breathing around me. At 11:23 p.m., I heard footsteps, human footsteps, slow, crunching through the snow, coming straight toward my tent. I held my breath, gripping the flares I kept for emergencies. The footsteps stopped right outside. Then a voice said, "Hey, it's Miller. Open up." I froze. It sounded exactly like him, perfectly like him, too perfectly. "I got stuck," the voice continued. "Truck slid off the road. I walked here. Let me in, man. It's freezing." No breathing, no shivering, no struggle against the wind. Just those words, steady, emotionless. I didn't answer. After 10 long seconds, the voice tried again. "Let me in, please." Still perfect, still wrong. Then the tone dropped, flat, empty. "I know you're awake." The zipper twitched, and something inside me snapped. I grabbed the flare, yanked the cord, and the tent burst with violent red light as I slashed a hole through the wall and dove into the storm. The wind howled, tearing at my clothes. Snow stung my skin. The flare hissed in my hand. I looked back. A figure was crawling out of the tent hole after me, not walking, not standing, crawling. Its limbs wrapped and unwrapped in unnatural contortions, like a spider learning to move on human joints. Its head tilted far too much to one side, like its neck had no bones. Then it spoke, and I nearly dropped the flare. "You left me," in my voice again. I ran. Branches whipped my face. Snow blinded me. My lungs burned. I could hear the thing behind me, dragging itself in fast, jerking bursts. Not consistent steps, but sudden leaps of motion like a skipping video file. The forest distorted around me, the storm swallowing every sound except my own heartbeat and the creature's wet, hitching breaths. I aimed for the road. The flare sputtered, my legs buckled, and then, through the chaos, headlights. A truck. I stumbled into the road, waving the dying flare. The truck skidded to a stop. The driver's door flew open. "Miller!" I yelled. But the man who stepped out wasn't Miller. He wasn't anyone I knew, just a passing local who'd seen the flare. He dragged me into the truck just as the flare died completely. When I looked back into the darkness, a pale shape stood at the edge of the road, watching, tilted, wrong. The driver floored the gas. I never went back to Site 42. The company filed my report under severe environmental stress reaction. Miller had never returned to pick me up. They'd sent someone else instead. They said Miller was sick that day, home, nowhere near the forest. The trail cameras were eventually recovered, all except camera 4. Camera 3's file? It showed nothing unusual, just static. No figure, no voice. They said I imagined it. That winter storms cause audio distortions. That isolation warps perception. That I must have damaged the footage myself. But I know what I saw, what I heard, what followed me. Because 2 weeks later, I found something in my backyard. Long tracks in the snow, not prints, drag marks, perfectly circling my house and on my back porch. A single trail camera, camera 4, with a new recording. I haven't opened it, and I never will. I hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more terrifying tales.